Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Your Forever Home, the podcast. I've popped in this week because we're not actually in a season of the podcast series. But what's prompted me to record the podcast today is, as I record this in July, Australia is currently going through one of its biggest lockdowns the country has seen through the COVID pandemic. We have over 11 million people in lockdown around the country, which is more than half our population. And so what I wanted to chat about today is wellness. I wanted to talk about wellness in our environment and how we can create instant wellness in our home, but also design for wellness. It's certainly a challenging time. I'm currently residing in Melbourne, where I suppose I always reside. So because we have been through lockdown, this is our fifth lockdown, and I suppose the toll is really, it's really taking its toll on me personally, and I cannot imagine how many other people around the country are actually experiencing their own lockdown, the Melbourne lockdown, the lockdown that's now being announced in Orange, in New South Wales, in Sydney. But it is certainly having its effect. And so I really wanted to focus on what can we do, what can we control in our environment that can make a difference. So today's podcast is all about creating wellness in our homes, in our environments, and further to that, for those of us who are renovating and creating new homes, how can we actually design with wellness in mind? And so look, I've hit the wall a few times, I have to say, this week. I've had 2 holidays cancelled in the span of 6 weeks. I've certainly shed some tears in the last few days. My girls are really struggling with homeschooling. It's how many times can they go through this? So I'm trying to be strong for my girls, for my team, for my clients. But, there have certainly been times, particularly this week, it's been really rough. But I know that there are so many more people out there that are doing it far worse than what I am, what my community are, and we all need to look out for each other. So today's episode is all about creating wellness for ourselves, for the people around us, and just what can we do that really has a very positive impact. I know personally that being outside, getting away from screens, being in touch with nature makes a massive difference to my mental health. And I personally make sure that, I get up at 5:30, 6 o'clock every day to go for a walk along the beach. Most of the time it's in the dark with my dog. It's good for my dog, it's good for me, and I'm always catching up with a girlfriend. So I know that starts my day with the right mindset. But I also know and I recognize that I then can't sit behind a screen all day. I need to actually get out later in the afternoon to make sure that, I'm re-engaging with nature again before I finish off for the day. So what do we need to do then, apart from all those, obvious things that we can do in our home? So how can we create that wellness, the cocoon ourselves? We need to feel cocooned in our homes, and that's when we know we've got the right environment created in our homes and our spaces. But how can we create this oasis that we can reside in and live in and go back to, whether we are in lockdown or whether we just come back from a busy day in the office, that we retreat back to our homes? So what can we do in our homes? We need to be able to create privacy. We need to be able to create a space that we can retreat to for every single family member. And I'm going to get back to that a little bit later in the episode, because I want to talk about how we can design for that. So ideally, we need to create a space where each family member has got a space that they can retreat to that's beyond their bedroom. There's one thing to create a bedroom, and teenagers love this. They go to their bedrooms and it's their haven. But there needs to be ideally another space within the home that they can go to, that they feel like they can, just recharge, relax, just have a spot that they can have some privacy to really reconnect with themselves, which is really important when we're trying to create mindfulness for ourselves. So it could be a second living room, it could be a sunroom, a conservatory, it might be an area where there's a lot of books around us. But it needs to be a space ideally that has a door so that we can create that privacy and we can, just I suppose, cocoon ourselves in retreating to a space where we can curl up and read a book. We don't want to be inundated with noise from other areas of the home. And by that, it's generally that open plan living out in the down towards the back of the home, where we've got that big open space that is not an area that's generally quiet in nature. People are cooking dinner or watching TV or whatever it is. It needs to be another space in the home to retreat to. It might be upstairs, it might be a second living area where a door can be closed, but it's a place to relax, to rest, to read a book, to curl up, to recharge, to just have time to sit and be quiet and reflect. It might be a space where you can roll out a yoga mat, maybe do some mindfulness or some yoga or Pilates or whatever it is. Privacy is really important. The ability to rest and recharge is really important for our mental health and our wellness. So the other thing, and I suppose this alludes to what I was talking about before, in that I know I need to be outside, and I don't know anyone on this earth that doesn't feel recharged by just being outside, being in nature, sitting in a garden, surrounding ourselves with trees or with the trickle of water, whatever it is, the beach. Being connected to the outdoors has such a positive impact on our mental health and our wellness. And so we need to create the connection to outdoors in our homes. It doesn't matter where you are. You can have it in an apartment by having a vista out to a little balcony where you might have some plants or whatever it is, a view to something. But if we're in a home that we've got a flow to the outdoors. So connection to a balcony, connection to a garden, connection to a courtyard. We need to have that connection to the outdoors. But it's not just being able to step outside. And I know, living in Europe, it's not always possible to have an outdoor space. There's a premium on outdoor spaces and having a balcony in Europe. But it's about being able to open windows and being connected to the outdoors. But it's also having the views to nature. So a view to a garden, a view to the sky, or even an amazing view that you might be privileged enough to have, a view to the ocean, a view to trees, a view to a big landscape view. So having that view and not necessarily being able to step outside is also really a way to engage and feel connected to the outdoors. But we recharge when we're in nature, and I know that just sitting in a space that you can, have the sun on your face, or to be able to just look outside and watch the wind in the trees is a very good way to create really good well-being in ourselves. So we need to design around the outdoors, and I'm going to get to that a little bit later, but because it's not just that stepping out into the outdoors and having, big sliding doors that connect to an alfresco or a garden. It's actually being able to see the outdoors and feel connected. Then we've got to surround ourselves with what we love. And for those of you who have followed me for quite some time, you will know that this is a mantra of mine that I go on and on and on about because I feel it's so important. I will get on my soapbox about this because it is something that I'm really believe in and I'm very, very passionate about. And that is, we need to really surround ourselves with what resonates with us personally, not what resonates with someone else's thing. It's what resonates with you. So things that really mean something, I want you to think about what can you have in your home that really means something to you. It might be something that you've collected on one of your travels that reminds you of an amazing holiday that you had or an amazing experience that you had. It might be something that you've made. It might be something that someone else has made for you, a family member, a friend, your children. It might be heirloom pieces that really tell a story of your family's history or your history. It may be something that you've done and there's a memory from that that really connects with you. If we are surrounded in our homes by things that we're connected to, we are cocooning ourselves, we're creating a relaxing environment, and we're creating something in our lives that means something to us. And that is what makes a home a home. Our home is not something that is cut out of a magazine or that is a showpiece for other people. That's not a way to engage, to create an engaging environment for ourselves and our family. It's merely then a show home. So I really want you to think about What are the things that are important to you? I love surrounding myself with books, with artwork that I've just seen in my travels or have been drawn to. And those are the pieces that really matter to me. So, and there's pieces from my grandmother's home, things that I used to see on display that in her home, and then when she passed, I then put those things in my home. Some of them, not all of them. So you need to create a curation of things that really mean something to you. I don't mean be completely inundated with stuff that's just going to overwhelm you. It's more around creating a curated selection of things that mean something to you. And sometimes I have pieces of artwork around my home that my children have done, and they're sitting up on our window ledge, and then I might change those or and mix it up. So it's okay to put things away for a while and then bring them back out. But I think the key here is to make your home yours, for you to feel relaxed in your home, for you to feel cocooned, for you to feel that, yes, this is my space. You need to surround yourself with stuff that means something to you. And I shouldn't be so flippant in the word stuff. I should say that they are things that have resonated with you throughout your life journey. That is a home. Then the other thing you need to do, and I should also add, that's a joyful experience. It's not a hard experience. I certainly help clients curate what they have. I can remember distinctly working with a client whose historical her family's history was around millinery and also shoemaking. And she had all the amazing artifacts from her grandfather who used to be in those industries. And so I just created a curation of the pieces that she had, and then was able to display those in such a way that they really told the story. So it wasn't though we had things scattered all over the house. I had sort of the millinery corner and this shoemaking corner, it was actually on the edge of her sideboard that told the story. And then at the other end of that sideboard, we had some other things that told that story as well. So it was about creating, conscious placement of these items and conscious display of how those items were going to be selected and put on display. So, it's a joyful process, and you can engage someone to help you, because sometimes it's difficult when you are emotionally engaged with those items, what can stay and perhaps some of the other pieces that we could put somewhere else, or that can be put away for another time or selected in another way, so that you've got this curation of things that look good as well as have a connection. Now, the other thing, for those of you who have followed me for a long time will also know that this is my number one way to create wellness, relaxation, and being recharged in a home is to use plants. If there's one thing that you would do today, is go and get a plant and go and put it in your home, because there is absolutely, without any doubt, a way that you can change the way a space looks, but also change the way a space feels by adding plants. So that is bringing the outdoors in, and it's a great way when you don't necessarily, are able to step outside of your home or your apartment and be engaged with nature immediately. But if you can bring the outdoors in, that is an absolute guaranteed way to change the feeling in a space in a positive way. So the way you can use plants is so varied. You could have amazing pots with plants on the floor. They can go they fill a corner so beautifully. They can be on shelves. They can be in bookcases. You don't have to stuff your bookcases. You can curate your bookcases as well by having a combination of books standing up or being down, and then blending it with plants that are trailing, for example. You could have pots on display, hanging pots from beams or from ceilings. They can sit on bench tops. They can sit on tables, dining tables, for example, on consoles, on buffets. They make such a difference. And use them at different heights. Use different types of plants that have height, plants that trail, or plants that just, are in place of having a floral arrangement. They will make such a big difference to your well-being. Plus, they're adding oxygen into the space as well as taking away carbon monoxide. So they are instant things that you can do, and you can use this lockdown opportunity to create a new creation, display things differently, and really make an assessment. I did a big declutter a couple of weeks ago because I was having a garage sale, but it was like, you know what, I'm really not connected to these things anymore, or they don't bring me the joy, and I don't really want to go into does this item fill me with joy, but what is the story of this item? Is it really worth me having it in my home? So if you're renovating or creating a new home, what are some of the things that you can do to ignite and ensure that there is wellness that's being consciously designed into your home? So the first thing is around the materials that we use. Physically, we want to make sure that we're not adding really bad things into our space that are going to physically not make us feel well. And that would be avoiding toxic chemicals, plastics, VOCs in our paints, polyurethane, formaldehyde, that are just sometimes hidden. Actually, more frequently, they're hidden into the materials that we're using in our home. So we need to make sure that we're making conscious decisions about those materials. I'm not going to go off on a tangent here, but please be mindful of hybrid and vinyl floors. They are full of toxic chemicals. A client said to me last week, "Oh, yeah, I went into my local flooring place, and I want to go over the tiles in my home." And he suggested hybrid flooring. Full of chemicals. Please do not use vinyl or hybrid in your home if you want to create wellness by minimizing the toxicity and the chemicals that are being emitted into our homes. If you're not sure, engage an expert, because the slow release of the chemicals in that home are certainly not going to bring wellness, and they're certainly not going to make you feel great, particularly over a long period of time. And think about the sort of toxic chemicals you might be adding into your home when you've got children. Okay, so that's the one thing, it's the physical aspect. But what about materials that we can use that actually physically make us feel, good? And again, I go back to nature. So if you're using materials that are natural in where they've been sourced from, they're probably going to give you a really nice feeling when you're looking at these materials and having them in your home. The aesthetic that they bring is also, really positive. So the most, common one to think of would be anything that's made out of timber, and things that are actually showing the grain and the knots and the natural elements of that timber are also going to add to how we feel about that product. Natural stone, using the beautiful, the green onyxes and all these amazing natural materials that can be used, and just looking at them, you think, wow, this has come out of nature. They make us feel good. Recycled materials are another one, and also using organic textures and petrified timbers and things that have organically become imperfect over time. These are things that add interest to our home, but they also make us feel just embracing, like we're embracing nature. And that's definitely a way that we can select materials consciously in terms of now and later on when we've got these homes finished, that they're going to create a great environment for us to be in and feel in. It's the number one thing we ask our clients. Not how do you want your home to look, but how do you want your home to feel? And that is what is going to create the wellness inside us. So the other thing is to design around wellness. And this is where I'm going to come back to the point about designing around having the ability that everyone in your household is able to retreat to a space, that they can have some privacy, that they can recharge, that they can feel they can relax and feel cocooned. And so you need to have spaces that are a quiet retreat. And so the way to do that is with the use of doors. Boy, oh boy, do I harp on about doors, but boy, oh boy, do they make a difference on so many different levels. You can create privacy, you can mitigate noise, you can feel like you can just be in a space and not be bombarded and see people walking past, and maybe the door being closed means I don't want to be disturbed. How many homes do I go into that you don't even have the opportunity to be able to retreat from the open plan living out the back by just being able to close some doors. So please design with doors in mind. When I'm doing a floor plan sanity check, the amount of doors I have to add into a home is just, I don't think I have seen one floor plan sanity check in 10 years that I don't have to add doors to. And these are the reasons why. We need to be able to create an area that we can retreat to. So design for that. Design around the landscape. Design around having a connection to the outdoors. So the obvious ones, of course, are sliding doors, bifold doors, whatever it is, a connection to our garden, a connection to our fresco, our balconies, our outdoor spaces. That's really obvious. But you know, the clever design and the clever connections are having these snippets, these highlight windows, or maybe a porthole window, or this really beautiful design that enables us to feel connected to the outside without it being so obvious as opening a door. So that might be something like a little highlight window that lets us get a glimpse of the sky. Isn't that nice to sit there in our sofas and just look up and go, oh yeah, look at that gorgeous blue sky, or look at those clouds moving through the sky. But we're not standing outside, but we're seeing it from the indoors. That's a connection to nature and a connection to outside. It might be a little surprise outlook. They're the special ones. They're the ones that architects do so well, that you've got this little surprise, this little nook that enables you to connect to the outdoors. It might be a window that's been strategically placed because you've got an amazing tree in your garden that allows you to look at the canopy of that tree. And so the strategic placement of non-standard windows actually give us those little surprise connections to the outdoors. And this is where your architect will really come into their own. There's an opportunity that we do create that connection to the outdoors. But I think getting back to the privacy thing for a minute, I think one of the things I forgot to mention just now was one of the number one things that every one of us needs is the ability to feel that we've got a private space to go to, so that we do have this ability to recharge. So I really want you to think about that when you're doing the design. Have it in your brief. And we need to be able to mitigate noise, which is also one of the key things that I repeatedly have to remind my clients when I'm doing a floor plan sanity check with them, but also allow for and plan for with the use of doors in those sanity checks too. So the final thing I'm going to cover off in this session is around wellness in terms of colors. How do we choose colors that allow us to feel better within ourselves, that allow us to feel relaxed, that allow us to feel connected, or recharge ourselves? So there's two things that come to mind here. First are the colors of nature. You can never ever go wrong with the colors of nature in being injected into your home, because they are the key ingredients for making us feel relaxed, calm, and just able to recharge. Generally, the colors of blue and green are people's favorite colors for a reason, because they are the colors of nature. The blue of the ocean, the blue of lakes, the blue of just our waterways, and then the greens of nature. And there's such a myriad different shades of these colors as well. It's not just a stock standard blue or green. You'll generally find that you gravitate more to one or the other, but they are absolutely, hands down, the most common favorite colors for people are blues and greens. And hey, it's okay not to love blue or green. It's quite interesting with green, personally my favorite color, but it's quite interesting that when we do ask our clients, what are your favorite colors, the colors that you've gravitated to your whole life, not just yesterday and not just because you've seen it in the shop, green is really polarizing. It is either a big love or a big dislike. And that's okay, because you're designing this house for you. So you need to surround yourself with the colors that make you feel relaxed, that make you feel energized, or make you feel happy. So I want you to think about what those colors may be. So go with the colors of you love. What are colors that make you feel cocooned? What are colors that make you feel relaxed? What are colors that make you feel happy and energized and just be in a happy place? they're the colors that you need to use in your house. And it doesn't mean that you need to paint all your walls those colors, but inject those colors into the places, into the spaces around you. It may be with the use of soft furnishings. It might be in your sofa color, your cushion colors, your doona colors. It may be in the wall color. It may be in the wallpaper that you choose. It doesn't really matter how you inject those colors, but you need to think about the colors that you like and just use them around your house, because that's also instant. You can go and do that. You can go and find a stash somewhere, or pull out an old doona cover that's in your favorite color. There's probably a reason you bought that in the first place. Don't be guided by what your friends love. It doesn't matter. You're not building this house for them. You're not decorating this house for them. It all comes back to you. You need to be connected to this space, and the only way to do that is to choose things for you, not for anyone else. You'll hear me say it all the time. Don't worry about what people are doing up the street. Don't worry about what the Joneses are doing. You've just got to focus on what's going to be working for you and your family. Be guided by you and what your heart tells you. Now, I want to just touch on kids for a minute. I've had a lot of calls recently about, my children really want to be able to paint their room, and they want to do this and they want to do that. And sometimes we can feel, I'm a parent myself, sometimes we can feel a little bit reticent about, and how long is that going to last for, that phase and everything else. But you know what? Letting your kids have a little bit of input into the creativity for their spaces by injecting a color that they love. Not only are they involved in that space, you'll probably find that they're a lot happier because they've had an input, but they're a lot happier being in those spaces and being in their room. And it doesn't mean that they're going to, you don't want them to, be in their rooms forevermore. But for them to feel connected to their own space and to their own room is actually really important for their well-being. So you know what? Paint is cheap, and it doesn't actually cost a lot to paint a space. You can do it yourselves. You can get them engaged, and maybe they want to, depending on their age, of course, be involved in painting their own space. If you still don't feel that you're comfortable doing that, do it with them with a doona cover. Do it with those little scatter cushions or a throw that they can have, or make a little, reading nook in a corner that you can just create a couple of cushions on the floor in a color that they love. But they really love being involved in the process. And I'd really like to encourage you to think about how they can be involved in that process, because it's also really good for their well-being as well. My girls are forever presenting color schemes to me and mood boards, and one of my daughters has even created a little floor plan, and she wants a rock climbing wall and to get into her bed. I'm probably not going to go that far, but we're definitely engaging in them choosing some wallpaper and some colors. And I did say no to my daughter that said, I want one wall purple, I want the other wall blue, and I want the other wall green. No, we'll choose a color that talks to the wallpaper, and then you can have that on all the other walls. And I don't mind what the color is, but I'm not having 3 different walls in 3 different colors. So you'll have your own boundaries, but just give them a little bit of, what I would suggest is just give them a little bit of, input into how their space is going to be created. So I certainly hope that that's given you some ideas on how you can create some wellness, some instant mental health and wellness around your home. If you just do one thing today, go and get a plant. Go and cut some greenery from your garden. It doesn't have to be floral. Cut some greenery, stick it in a vase and put it inside. Grab a plant, or go and buy a plant. There's still click and collect. You can still do this, and bring some things in from outside, even if it's temporarily for now. Think about what you gravitate to, what you love, and then surround yourself with those things. I know I've done other podcasts on this, but this is really focused on the wellness. I think we really need to connect with that over the next period when we're, 3 states are in lockdown, South Australia and New South Wales, and also Victoria. But there are things to try and, help us get through this really, really difficult time. Let the sun shine on your face inside. I was talking to someone the other day around how, as we get older, sometimes just sitting in the chair and having the sun shine on our faces can just bring so much relief and so much joy into our lives. It's the tiny little things. So design around it, absolutely, for sure, but there's certainly things that you can bring in temporarily and create in your home. So I wish you great wellness over this period. This is a very timely podcast around lockdown, but it's certainly something that is timeless, because all of these things will matter for the rest of your life. So all the best, and let me know what you inject into your house that you've taken out of this podcast. And I'd love to know what you've got out of this and what you're going to implement in your home to just make it that little bit more homey, a little bit more connected, and a little bit more relaxed. Enjoy the process, and bye for now.